Hi, welcome to Cosplay on a Budget. How to make costumes when money's tight. I am your resident broke cosplayer who thrives on thrifting for cosplay and stuff like that. So, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Yub Yub Commander. I've been cosplaying since 2011. I have been crafting since 2018. I am a multi-award winning masterclass cosplayer, and I kind of specialize in like foam work and armor, but occasionally when forced to, I will sew things. So this is kind of my masterclass list of how I personally have found ways to save money on costuming, and kind of like, how do you figure out what's worth spending like the big bucks on and what do you want to skimp on, because let's be really honest, a lot of these supplies and then like of course the materials in order to craft things gets really pricey, especially once you get into stuff like foam armor and LED and embroidery. So crafting versus thrifting versus buying, what's the difference and is one better than the other? So for crafting, you can make whatever you want. Limits only really exist due to your budget and your skill level, and both of those can change as time goes on. It can be very expensive, like oof, but it does go hand in hand with thrifting if you are able to thrift materials and whatnot. But creativity really is the key. You can come up with a lot of stuff with crafting that maybe should be made out of or could be made out of more expensive materials, and you can get really creative with simpler and cheaper materials to make something that's really cool. For thrifting, in my personal opinion, it's probably the cheapest option unless you're doing like online thrifting, but if you're just going to Goodwill, Salvation Army and stuff like that, probably going to be your cheapest option for costume creation. It's really dependent on what the stores carry. Sometimes if you're really trying to make a specific costume, it could take years to thrift the exact things that you need. There was one costume that I made that took about 2.5 years for me to thrift everything for it, but in the end it was worth it because I spent $10 on the costume. So I was very particular about what I wanted for that one. It's Merlin from Merlin BBC, if anyone here understands that show or loves that. But regarding thrifting though, it may require upcycling or sewing skills in order to make it exactly what you want, especially if it is something that maybe doesn't quite fit you or needs to be altered to fit more the vibe of what you're trying to get. So you do have to have a little bit of skill in that area, or at least just the audacity to try. You can thrift materials, not just outfit pieces. I really like to go and just buy curtains. It's amazing how many curtains are really high quality nowadays and you can use for like competition level cosplay pieces. And I'll get to that in a second. But for the most part, you will probably still need to either make or commission props. That's not normally something you can just go into the store and find, especially when you get into stuff like Genshin Impact, World of Warcraft, or anything that's like a lot more specialized. For buying cosplay, you're very limited to what shops will carry, but you can get custom outfits also depending on the shop. Sometimes you can get them custom fitted to your body. There's one on Etsy, I don't know if it still exists, called She Cause. It was pretty good, and they will do like a custom fit to your body for almost all of their outfits, but it's not cheap. You don't have to upcycle, you don't have to make anything, especially when it comes to props and stuff. If you can make the costume, sometimes you can commission someone to make the props. But you can commission what's needed. You don't have to make the whole costume for it. So if you can do half of the costume, you can commission someone else to make the other stuff. If it's like wings or armor, but you can make all the sewing or vice versa. Buying really lets you have more of that flexibility with what you're trying to do. All right, so I guess I'll just turn this around so that y'all can see. I don't know, I feel weird looking at the pictures. So just so y'all can see, I know it's a little hard. These are my competition level costumes, just for context. This one right here, the blue pirate one, that was almost fully thrifted. I won an actual award with this costume, and it's mostly thrifted materials. I'm cheap, despite what some of these have costed. If I can, I will find ways to cut corners, and if that means going to Goodwill or taking my mom's old t-shirt and ripping it apart, I will do that to make an outfit. But just for like a general idea, I made all of these costumes myself. Most of them were self-patterned. The fawn one on the very end was about $900 from start to finish. The only reason it cost that much was because I was insane and I made stilts. So that one puts me at about 7 feet tall. The pink armor, that one was over $1,000. And it's exclusively because of the little charm designs that are on the sleeves, which cost me $500. That's all I'll say to that one. You can find it on my Instagram, but it's not really ACC appropriate. So, crazily enough, the Alphonse Elric armor was $70 to make. The pattern that I found for that was free online. I already had all the materials for the foam crafting, in terms of like the EVA foam itself I already owned, but also like the Dremel, the heat gun, all of those different materials I already owned. Now, if you were starting it from fresh, I recently had someone ask me this, to make my Alphonse Elric armor, if I didn't have any of the crafting supplies going into it, would have put me around $250, which if you think of something like that to have to make yourself is a lot cheaper than commissioning someone. But with commissioning someone, you might get something that's a little bit better quality. And then the Pirate Jester one, which is the one I mostly thrifted, I think it was like $150. Most of that was because the wig was $50. And then everything else was just like notions and other odds and ends here and there. But a lot of that cost will go down because when you're making stuff, when you buy things like straps and buckles, those are things that get spread out over tons of different costumes, which means that the price kind of becomes negligible later on. Just kind of a look at thrifted costumes. These are a couple of costumes I put together. I've got my Merlin BBC one, which was like $15. Took 2 years for me to thrift because I was really, really adamant that I had to make it like that. My Rough Nut costume, I think cost me like $30, and it was because the wig was $15. I just thrifted all of that, like seriously. And I think a friend gave me her PJ pants, and that's what I use for the costume to this day. My Ven Venture costume from Mistborn was an old sheet that I covered with paint, and then I wore a black t-shirt and pants underneath that I already owned. So that one was like pennies. And then my level 1 Jester cosplay was a little bit more expensive because it has a lot of crafted elements in it, but for the most part, all of the materials were thrifted, including the boots. And that one would probably be around $50, so not too bad. And then you get into ones that I have purchased. So, as you can see, I'm currently wearing the Link. This is a Mick Costumes Link cosplay. I love this thing to bits. I reuse the belts on every single costume that I wear, but it was like $90. And then you have my level 10 Jester cosplay, which was around $250, which was commissioned to my body type. And then I have a really obscure webtoon comic cosplay, which is Camille from Muted. And those were just pieces I purchased off Amazon. That one was around like 50 to 70 because a couple of pieces. And then my bow costume from Critical Role was commissioned, and I want to say it was like $300. So all this to say, cost depends on what you're wanting to do and how much work or money you're willing to put into it. Give me a sec. So, cosplay breakdown. The questions you need to be asking whenever you're going into a costume. What are your non-negotiables? What can you make or purchase? What are you willing to make? I hate sewing. I will happily pay someone $300 to sew something for me if it means I don't have to touch my sewing machine. What additional tools may be required or skills that you will need? So LEDs are really, really awesome. They're fairly cheap, but if you want to get into like high level quality stuff, you're looking at about a $300 down investment for like all your base supplies, including the lights, the soldering iron, everything. EVA foam, same kind of thing. How much are you going to need on that? You're gonna have to have your foam, you're gonna have your glue, you're gonna have your heat gun and your knife and all of these different items. How much money are you willing to put into that for that initial investment? Can you borrow items for the costume that you're working on from friends or family? And what other items from other costumes can you use? So like I said, my belts on Link, I literally use on like every costume. These poor things have been through it. They are falling apart now, but it's like the best thing. The boots that I have on are the ones that I thrifted that I use for every brown boot costume. Jedi, got it. Jester, got it. Link, that's what I'm wearing, okay? I know I'm flying through this. Do you have any questions? Any thoughts, comments? Okay. See how we're doing on time. Yes.
I was, or I've read, or I can't remember, we're kind of new to this with our daughters, but when you go into a cosplay contest and they say the decoration has to be mostly your own, what are we talking about as far as percentages go? Can I download a sample or something, or buy like a base one and then go around it, or
so
your
it's,
experience, that's what's the...
hold on one sec. I gotta take this off, it's driving me nuts. So when it comes to craftsmanship competition, the rule of thumb is you need to have made 60% of your costume or more. For novice level, which is beginner cosplayer. I'm in masters, so usually for my level, it means, depending on the con, it's 80 to 90% or more. So the higher you get, the more you're required to make. I would not in any way, shape, or form recommend ever competing in Atlanta as your first time. Atlanta is on an international level for costume competitions. We have people here that compete in masters that could go and win international level contests. And that is normal for masters. A lot of cons, like especially in Alabama and South Carolina, they're a lot more newbie friendly, which won't make you feel quite as overwhelmed. Like my purple armor with like the blue face, that was a novice level build for me. So when it comes to percentages, conventions not in Atlanta are usually going to be a lot nicer and a lot more lenient about what you're allowed to make and what you're allowed to purchase or have someone else help you with. Atlanta's a lot more strict with that. They'll have you do like a full breakdown, a build book, which essentially is a full outline of every single thing that you did. But if you're doing 60%, you have to do a breakdown of, are you making the base for the costume or are you making the accessories for the costume? Accessories are probably not gonna hit that 60%. If you're making the base or heavily modifying the base plus doing the accessories, that's gonna push you over the 60%. You don't have to pattern things yourself though. That's a high level skill. Again, in Atlanta though, it's insane. We have people in Journeyman making shoes. Like, there was a MomoCon winner a couple years ago that literally fully handcrafted her shoes in Journeyman, and that was like, oh yeah, no, that's a normal skill. But if you're wanting to do that, I would say don't stress. You can always enter contests. The chance of winning a contest is very low. I always mentally like to go into the fact that I am there to make friends and to walk on stage because I want people to notice me. I'm sorry, I'm conceited, I'm a cosplayer. You kind of have to be a little bit. I want to go on stage and have people stare at me and take pictures of me, like come on. So that's what I'm there for. If you go into competing with the mindset of winning, you will always be unhappy. But you can very much just do what you can, talk to the judges afterwards, they usually are really good with feedback, and see if they think, hey, tweak it a little bit here, add a little bit more here. If you want to hit this exact percentage for this specific thing, this is what you need to make, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I know that was like a long-winded thing. I feel the need to preface about how insane it is here.
No, I appreciate it. It's good to know.
So, cheap ways to craft. You got your thrifting or purchasing discounted or wholesale fabric. You can use old sheets for mock-ups, or you can dye the fabric yourself. Use EVA floor mats instead of the fancy EVA foam. I'm a little bit of a foam snob. I'm not willing to pay for the expensive foam. I'm sorry, I don't have that kind of money. I work for the public library. You can purchase cheap wigs and learn how to add your own lace, or you can fix them up. This was a $10 wig. And this is not like, my friend styled it because I hate wigs, but if you know what you're doing, you can make a $10 wig look like a nicer wig. You don't have to go spend $85 on an Arta, which you may or may not get in time for the convention. And then my personal little hack, I'm blind already. I don't want to buy contact lenses and continue to be blind. There's no point because I'm gonna have to wear my glasses anyway. I just use photo editing for all my eyes. You can do it for videos too. Don't worry about spending money on contacts if you don't want to. So, where do you find affordable materials? For fabric, this is my recommended list. You've got Fabric Wholesale Direct, which is a website. Mood Fabrics, which just recently acquired the Yaya Han line of fabrics from Joann's. Thrift stores, I really like Goodwill. Amazon, you can sometimes purchase stuff in bulk, which is really nice. And then of course, if you're here in Atlanta, Fine Fabrics. If you have never been to Fine Fabrics, you have got to go to Fine Fabrics. It is a religious experience. Oh my God. You people who've been there know. Yes.
What was the name of the store place? I missed it.
Mood Fabrics, M-O-O-D. You're welcome. So for notions, which are buttons, zippers, and anything like that, grommets, etc., specifically for sewing, Amazon is really great for bulk. I'm also lazy and I like 2-day shipping. Fine Fabrics as well has a ton. You can go there and find a zipper in nearly every color known to mankind. There's one called Wawak, W-A-W-A-K. I've heard is really good. They sell stuff at really, really cheap prices. And then Fabric Wholesale Direct also has notions. For foam, you can go to Home Depot. You can get 10mm EVA foam. You know those like puzzle mats that they sell for like automotive shops or for children? That is 10mm EVA foam. Amazon is where I buy my 4mm EVA foam. I buy specifically, it's called the Anti-Fatigue Mat. It is $30, give or take, and it's, I think, like a 30 by 8 foot like chunk of foam. It is amazing. I made my entire Alphonse cosplay in one roll of that stuff for $30. And then for 2mm foam, the craft store. All those like sheets that you get for little kids where it's like you can cut out your little star shape and stick it on something. That is 2mm foam. It is dirt cheap. You can buy it in bulk on Amazon or at like Hobby Lobby or Michael's or any other craft store. For patterns, because let's be honest, patterning is scary if you've never done it before. My first armor I ever made, I patterned myself and it looked like trash. It was awful. I put it on like a couple of years ago because I was like, there's no way that it actually is this bad. It was awful. So I find the easiest way to understand how to make a pattern is to find someone who makes patterns really well and study how they make their patterns. Like look at the way their patterns sit. And it helps you recognize where the seam lines are going to be on your fabric and on your foam. So for foam patterns, I recommend SKS Props. They have free patterns on their website for a variety of items. And then you can also get the Humble Bundle that goes up every so often. It's $15 on the Humble Bundle website. And it's a giant pattern pack, but also cosplay related books. There are books on wig styling, there are books on ball gowns, there are books on how to like weather armor. It's very, very good. And then for fabric patterns, you can go on Mood Fabrics, the same one that sells the fabric. Sign up for their newsletter and you get free access to every free pattern on their website. And they have stuff from like actual costume patterns to like what you would consider regular clothes that you can use to alter and modify for costumes. And then of course there's Etsy. A really big thing though that you have to watch out for, especially nowadays, is to make sure it's not AI. So double check those reviews. Make sure that there are people posting pictures of the costumes that they have made with those patterns, because unfortunately there are a lot of people trying to make a quick buck and they will sell an AI pattern and it will not make anything that looks normal. And then self-plug, I occasionally make patterns for different things. My patterns tend to be more specialized for specific cosplays, but I do have them available. All right, and then another self-plug for people who like to paint. There's a thing called the Plaid Paint Ambassador Program. This is really cool. I had a friend that turned me on to this, but it's literally like Plaid Paint makes folk art and apple barrel. If you're like me, you probably grew up like using those companies and using those brands. You can get a sponsorship with them, where essentially you just post pictures on your social media. You gotta follow a little set of rules where it just like tags them and lets them know that you're doing it. They have challenges that are set up. If it's paint that you're already using, you can use photos of projects you made years ago to complete the challenges. So you don't have to put in any new work and they send you free paint. and they'll send you like really nice paint. Like I got some fancy pastel pearlescent paints recently, and all I had to do was just sign up and say I'd make something within like a month of me getting the item, and they sent me 14 paints. That was it. So definitely check that out. But basically you just go on there and you only have to do a couple of challenges a year. It's not like you're doing one every single month, but if this is something you're really interested in, I do highly recommend it. And then of course, body paint, because that is my specialty. I almost showed up blue today and I decided it was Georgia heat and I didn't want to deal with it. But for those of you who are interested in body paint, the big questions you gotta ask: do you want water-based or do you want oil-based? And what can your body handle? Because some people can't do the oil-based because it messes with their skin. Other people can't do water-based because of that. So definitely test it out, do a swatch. Please don't get an allergic reaction and die, because that's not fun. But the main ones that you kind of have are the Mayron Paradise, which are really good. It's either water-based or you can get their cream stick, which is a cream-based paint. My personal favorite body paint to use is Body Color Cosmetics, which is a local shop from South Carolina. I have worn that stuff to Dragon Con for 15 hours in the heat, and I did not lose paint on my face. Like, I touched up on my lips because I ate, and that was it, but that was more lipstick. But like, my whole face, when I got to my photo shoot at 8 o'clock that night, was flawless. But yeah, they're at Dragon Con every year, but you can purchase off their website as well. It's a silicone-based paint. The first time I used it, I did a swatch test on my arm and I left it on there for a week, and it did not come off until I scrubbed my arm raw. So, don't do that. You have to use like baby oil to get it off, but even then it's like always in my ears. And then Snazaroo is another one. I believe it's water-based. I've heard some people have really good experience with it. I've heard other people don't like it as much. So I would say definitely just see what works for you. Regarding body paint, a lot of conventions have rules that you cannot paint your hands. They will not let you in the building, depending on the convention, if your hands are painted, because you could leave stains on the wall. Your hands sweat, like literally if you do anything. So that means that if you touch things, it comes off and then it's property damage and they get in trouble and you get in trouble. So we don't want that to happen. I recommend We Love Colors. It is a little bit expensive, but they are body types that are made. They are body inclusive. They have a very good stretch. They come in a variety of colors, and you can get everything from just gloves to like sleeve all the way up to here, matte gloves that have no seams or anything. You can get a full cat suit with toes included, which you would not imagine how much you actually kind of need that if you do body paint a lot, but it is so nice to have that as like a potential, so you can have open toed shoes without just like foot. But they have sizes from kids to adults, and then they have a ton of different sizes. I think, don't quote me on this, but I feel like it goes up to 4X. I had a friend that just got one of them that I had recommended and fit them perfectly, and they are plus sized, and I think they got like almost the same size I did, and it fits me perfectly. They've got really good stretch. It is expensive, is the only thing. It's an investment. You can purchase tights and stuff like that off Amazon. If you don't feel like putting in that much money and effort, I totally understand. But if you are going to be doing body paint regularly, I highly recommend spending the extra buck. I want to say the cap suit was like $100. If you're not going to be showing a ton of your body, don't get that. The seamless gloves usually run about $35, and I really like those because it literally covers like your whole hands, and you can just hot glue fingernails to the end of it, and it looks flawless. I have people that are like, oh my god, did you like paint your whole body? And I'm like, no, I don't want to waste my time doing that. It's already too long to paint this. So, wig shopping. What are you looking for in a wig? Do you want a high quality wig, or do you want something a little bit cheaper? High quality wigs, you're gonna be looking for lace fronts. If you want something that's cosplay specific, you're gonna be looking at Epic Wigs, Arta Wigs, Wig is Fashion, which is, I believe, a UK company, and there are a couple of others. Amazon also has a lot of really great lace front wigs. I don't wanna spend money on Epic Cosplay and Arta. They're too expensive for me, and I don't know what to do with styling. So I'd rather spend $40 on Amazon for a wig that I can just slap on my face. For cheaper wigs, I honestly recommend Map of Beauty. which, let me turn this around so y'all can see this a little bit. Hold on.
What did you say for that brand?
Map of Beauty.
Map of Beauty.
Yes. So it's a little hard to see, but my fawn costume, my friend did this wig for me. Like, she kind of walked me through it. This was 5 Map of Beauty wigs. I spent $60 to make this, and it looks really good. I mean, like, you can kind of tell it is cheaper fibers, but if you don't care and you don't want to spend what would have been, if you had gotten this from Arta, the amount of wigs it would have taken, you're looking at over $100+ for the same amount. If you don't have that kind of money, get the cheap stuff. Figure out how to make it look really nice. You can use Rit Dye More, which is a fabric dye for polyester. You can use that to actually dye wigs. You can do it to ombre dye wigs or just dye them a completely new color, which is really nice. You can also use an airbrush, which I don't know if she airbrushed this one again, but you can use an airbrush to like kind of define the roots in a wig and stuff like that. The hack I recently learned is that if you get like a nail airbrush for like $20, it's gonna actually work a lot better than a traditional airbrush, which traditional airbrushes, if you get like the whole thing with the compressor, it's around $85 to over $100 depending on the brand. A nail airbrush is literally $20 and it allows you to do a smaller area and it's a lot more controlled. So it makes it a little bit easier if you're doing stuff with hair. My friend also, for the fawn wig, she literally watered down acrylics and sat there and started hand painting the shading on it. She's insane. I love her to bits. Do y'all have any questions? Thoughts, comments? You're so quiet. I don't know what to do with that. Huh? No, you're good. If you need a moment, that's fine. I know this has been like rapid fire, but if y'all have any questions about like any kind of specific materials, specific costume, yes.
I have a question. Okay, so you were talking earlier about the foam and all that. I'm not versed in cosplay at all, so I was sitting here going, what are you using the foam for? So what do you typically use the foam for in your
Everything. It's my armor.
Okay.
I've seen people who can make wigs out of foam. Like, if y'all know Borderlands or any of those more like artistic styled video games, there are people who make foam wigs to match that. Props, you can do a lot. Anything that's just that you would need a more rigid structure. You can use other materials for armor. There's Worbla, which is much more expensive, but it creates a super rigid structure. But like I said, it's more expensive and you have to do a little bit more work, in my personal opinion, in order to make it look super smooth. Whereas with foam, it's kind of smooth to begin with. But you've got to learn how to clean it up because you're gonna have to like glue all the seams together and make sure all the seams are like smooth and everything like that. So, but for foam, the main supplies that you would need would be hot glue, contact cement, which, for the love of everything, please do this outside with foam. It is highly dangerous. Don't be like me. I don't take my safety into any consideration and I'm dremeling in my house, okay? But yeah, you'll need like a rotary device. A Dremel does not have to be name brand. You can find them for about $20 on Amazon. The one that I have was literally like $19 and I have abused that thing and it still runs really well. It actually works better than my name brand Dremel. You'll need a heat gun to heat and shape your foam in order to make it where it fits and also to seal all the pores so it doesn't just absorb all the paint because it'll do that really bad, squishy. And that'll run you probably around $20, $25. Do not use a hairdryer. It will not get hot enough, but please be careful because a heat gun releases toxic fumes with the foam into the air, so please use proper protection, PPE, do it outside, don't be like me. And also please don't point it at yourself. It will burn you. The amount of people I've known that have been like, yeah, no, I turned it on and I touched it and it melted my skin. And I'm like, it says it gets to 1,000 degrees on the device. I'm insane. I get really cold, so I will literally sit there and just point at my feet to warm my feet up. So, like I said, don't be like me. Oh my God, what else do you need for foam? You can get a soldering iron. which is really good for carving shapes and like scale work and stuff like that. Yes.
Do you have any use for all this stuff that comes in boxes from Amazon? There's phones, there's mini-cell, there's a lot of stuff that sometimes you wonder,
You probably could.
have any experience with that?
No, I will admit most of what I do is just like cheap foam and I just kind of glue it together and go from there. There are probably people out there, I know cosplay when it comes to the more complex stuff that we're seeing nowadays is very much a newer concept. Obviously there have been people that have been making armor for well over 2 decades, if not even longer than that. But in terms of making like these really big complex stuff, you could probably go on YouTube and Google different materials and just put the word cosplay after it and see if someone's used it. I will also say, if you are not plugged in to YouTube, please, that is your biggest resource for cosplay stuff, tutorials, or just people showing you what they're doing. Doesn't even have to be a tutorial. I learned so much from Jessica Negri just rambling when she's crafting. Because she'll be like, yeah, no, I just glued this thing together and I added twine around it and now it looks like tree bark. And I'm like, I never thought to use jute. Okay, sure, add that to the list. So I would say definitely just go on YouTube and kind of look stuff up as well. And there are tons of forums on Threads, Instagram, TikTok is another really great resource for like cosplay tutorials and stuff like that. They're over there singing. I love it. Sorry, I'm usually at the karaoke hanging out, so I'm just like, oh, my people. Do you have any other questions? Yes.
I kind of answered it based on what you do use, but I'll ask it anyway. So, do you use paper mache or plaster?
I have not, but I know there are people that do use it. Plaster and stuff, you have to be a little worried about the weight and the brittleness of it. But if you're making a prop, it should probably be okay as long as you're willing to lift it. But definitely like the brittleness might be an issue. Paper mache is really, really fun. I know several people that use that to create like complex masks and different things like that, but you wouldn't want to use it as much for, I'm gonna stand up real quick to make this make sense. So when you make armor, part of the reason why you want to use foam is flexibility. Because whether or not you realize it, you are constantly engaging this part of your body by moving. Which means that if you use anything that's brittle, like foam clay or cardboard or paper mache, you are going to crease and crack in this area whether or not you mean to. Even with foam, after time, it will start to crease and crack right here. You can use Warbler, which is very sturdy, but then that means you have no movement. So like, I love armor. I am also very aware of the fact that I can't move in armor. Most of my costumes, when I'm in armor, this is about as much like bending as I can do. So I have dropped my phone on the ground and just stared at it for 45 minutes until someone's been nice enough to pick it up. So I would keep that in mind. Where are you trying to use those materials? Is there going to be any kind of constriction? Is it going to need to be flexible? And if not, go for it. You had a question?
Somebody asked a question. I can't
Yes. Pinterest could definitely work. I go on Pinterest for a lot of ideas. I love Pinterest. The only thing with Pinterest, it's kind of like DeviantArt. It used to be really great for a lot of like cosplay tutorials where people would do like step-by-step picture stuff. But as people have shifted away from that more to social media, you've lost a lot of like the newer knowledge. But I will say, you can go on Pinterest and you can find links to people's website, which is very convenient. So I would say, yeah, for sure, use Pinterest. Don't ever snub a resource. Resources are great. I love your helmet, by the way, or your mask, by the way, it's super cute.
Or DeviantArt? Oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
You still use DeviantArt?
I've been on there occasionally in the past couple of days, reminiscing.
It's been a while since I heard of DeviantArt.
Oh God, so I got into cosplay because of World of Warcraft, because yes, I'm one of those kids. But DeviantArt was where I kind of got introduced to like the costuming side of the fandom. And so yeah, I just kind of lurk on there, but it's for the most part, unfortunately, just like AI images at this point. There's not a lot of like new stuff that's getting posted. So it exists, it's living, it's trying, but anything else that y'all have? I know some of y'all are still thinking. Do y'all have any questions about any kind of sewing stuff? Because I know I've been talking a lot about foam. Y'all are good.
When you sew, are you mostly machine or manual?
Depends on what I'm making. If I'm sewing through leather, I do that by hand because I will snap needles indefinitely.
Should make you sew?
No, like I was insane and I made a leather corset. But for shoes and stuff like that, definitely you would want to use anything that is hand stitching. For the most part though, I use a machine. There are some cosplayers in the competition community that believe they will get more points by hand sewing, but they don't consider the fact that sometimes you're not as neat when you hand sew. There are some people out there that can hand sew better than a machine. If you're looking at it from a competition aspect, you're gonna go with whatever it is that's going to make it look the neatest. In my personal opinion, I go with whatever makes my life easier. And if it's a machine, I'm gonna do the machine. Just maybe don't put 3 layers of leather and EVA foam and hot glue through the machine at the same time. It does not like that.
Is this from experience?
It's crazy. I was in my group chat recently and I texted my friends, because most of all my friends are very much like sewing build cosplayers. And I was like, hey guys, I snapped my needle on my machine. And they were like, oh. And it was like 2 minutes later and I went, oop, there goes the second one. And they were like, what are you doing? And I was like, give me a minute. And then I was like, oh wait, there's the third one. And they were like, what are you doing? And I was like, yes, I'm trying to go through 2 layers of leather, hot glue, 4mm EVA foam, and it's just not wanting to work. And they were like, yeah, it's not going to work. And I was like, if I believe hard enough, it will work. It did not. I had to hot glue it directly to the back of the foam instead. I will say, actually, speaking of hot glue, if you are doing armor of any kind, do not use hot glue for your seams. Use hot glue to reinforce, use hot glue to add attachments, use contact cement for your seams. I love hot glue. I swear by hot glue. Hot glue looks really gross. It is very obvious how unsmooth armor will look if you use hot glue. It leaves gaps in the seams and stuff like that, but if you want a smooth, clean finish, use contact cement. But again, please be careful. Contact cement is very toxic. Don't huff it. Don't be mean.
Contact cement is an ideal way of putting 2 foams together.
Yes.
Ever stitch it or?
You can. The only thing is that foam rips really easily, so you have to be careful with that. I will say, when I'm doing like zipper attachments on my foam, I will sew it down, usually by hand, because the sewing machine sometimes doesn't like it. Again, probably user error, but also I've noticed that it perforates the foam a lot, so I would rather have longer stitches because it just holds it in place. And then I hot glue my zippers on the back to hold it extra secure. You can't get it off without ripping the entire armor apart. But for actively like attaching your stuff together, sewing it is better usually for cosmetic than actually holding your pieces together, because it's going to put too much tension on those points and it's just going to rip apart, unfortunately. I keep getting distracted by the singing. I'm so sorry. Oh, huh?
Linkin Park. Yeah, go.
That's what's getting me. Let me look through my slides. Wasn't sure how much time I would have today, so. Yes.
So, we're being ignorant here. So, what exactly would you use to, because the idea I have for something in my head is a Halloween costume. So, it's heavy on armor.
Okay.
I'm trying to understand exactly what I would be using to attach the EVA foam to a fabric.
Does it have to be attached, or can it be overlaid?
I guess, yeah, it's overlaid. Like, 'cause it would be like over something like this, like a jumpsuit. So, it would be attached.
Is it like individual pieces that don't make like a full like breastplate or anything like that? It's just like smaller pieces?
Yeah, it's small pieces. They're very close together.
Okay.
They're smaller
You could use E6000. It has a longer drying time, like you don't touch it, but it's like a flexible kind of glue. I really like hot glue. I'm gonna be really honest, I love hot glue. That's usually what I use, but I would recommend those two. Contact cement is not good for that kind of stuff. Contact cement is for stuff that's like the same material, or you can do like PVC and foam or something, but it would not work on fabric at all.
What kind of glue did you say that was?
It's called E6000. It has a very strong smell. Yeah. See, I like how contact cement smells because I'm messed up, but like I hate E6000. Look, no, I'm not even kidding. Every time I open a fresh container of contact cement, I gotta get that whiff in.
It's like a permanent marker.
It literally is.
Is that what replaced 5,000?
Huh?
The 6,000 replaced 5,000?
I don't know.
When I was growing up, there was a 5,000.
It might be.
Never heard of a 6,000. I wonder what they.
They may have upgraded it.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's like a new recipe or something. Yeah, because E6000 is what I've always known it as. Also, don't use super glue. Super glue is too rigid for that kind of stuff. Like if you use it, I will also say for super glue, I really like it for different things. It will discolor your stuff. Depending on what super glue you use, it sometimes will leave like a weird white powder finish or something, especially on like 3D prints. So just be careful with super glue.
What about Gorilla Glue?
Gorilla glue isn't quite strong enough.
Really?
Mhm.
Oh.
I will say, if you can get really high quality super glue, that's great for more like 3D prints, embellishments and stuff like that. But if you're doing anything on fabric, E6000 tends to be the really good one to use. Or again, the cheap option, which is hot glue. So, do y'all have any questions about 3D printing? I just realized I did not include anything about 3D printing. And we have about 10 more minutes.
What is 3D printing really? Cause like I've never really even gotten the concept.
I really wish I could have brought my 3D printer to display. So 3D printing is essentially the concept of a machine building an object layer by layer out of plastic. So you know how like when you build with Legos, you start at the bottom, you build your first layer, you go up, you build your next layer, and so on and so forth. That is how a 3D printer works. But you can adjust the way that it builds stuff. So maybe instead of making it a solid object, it is a slightly hollow object to make it where it's lighter weight, doesn't use as much filament and stuff like that. There are also tons of different types of filaments out there. It's not just plastic. I was recently watching something of a really big cosplay creator. If y'all don't follow Willow Creative, y'all need to follow Willow Creative. She is one of the top 3D printers in the US in terms of costume stuff. She's actually where I learned how to make digistilts for my fawn costume. She does a lot of like animatronic work, LED work. If you're interested in that side of stuff, you need to follow her. She does a lot of really great tutorials and whatnot. She was recently doing an experiment with multiple different types of 3D filament that are foam. They now have 3D printable foam. You can get 3D printable wood, it's called TPU. You can get 3D printed wood, you can get 3D printed metal, and there's a million other different types of materials that you can use. I love 3D printing and I hate 3D printing. I actually have to do it for my job. I teach kids how to use like 3D printers and 3D design. And then obviously I use it a lot for costuming and stuff like that. It's like any other piece of technology. You will love it, you will hate it, and it will make you the coolest stuff, and it will ruin everything that you've worked on. Yes?
I just looked up Willow Creative. She did a full bodysuits of 3D.
Yeah, she's crazy. Her werewolf costume is one of my favorites. It's entirely self-patterned, and then she used like, it's the foam used for couches, like cushions. She used that to make an entire bodysuit that she put fur over in like liquid latex. She does animatronic faces of like masks of animals and stuff like that. I think she also sells kits for furries. So if you're ever interested in any kind of like furry mask or base skeleton shape, she's got a lot of those on her website and on her Patreon that she either sells or she shows how to make. But yeah, she's crazy. She actually comes here to a lot of our cons. She was at MomoCon this past year as a guest. I believe she's Florida based currently. Do y'all want any cosplay recommendations of people to follow?
Yes.
Okay. So the first one I'm going to recommend is a person I do not like. They're questionable when it comes to ethics and other things, but they have some of the best foam patterns known to mankind, and that is Kamui Cosplay. Kamui Cosplay. She and her husband have a YouTube channel. Some of their earlier videos are some of my favorite costume videos of all time in terms of explaining how to make stuff. She sells incredible patterns. I swear by her cosplay patterns. My only complaint with her is that she has a history of not showing credit when other people have made things for her, and she takes credit for it. So I would be a little bit careful with her stuff, but unfortunately, she is kind of like the mother of cosplay in a lot of ways. Of course, there's Yaya Han, our Lord and Savior, the queen of cosplay herself. She does a lot of fabrics. So Mood Fabrics is where you can currently purchase a lot of her fabrics and stuff. She doesn't do as many cosplay tutorials and whatnot, but she is a great resource for figuring out other resources. If you are interested in wig work, Cow Butt Crunchies is a really great one. They have a whole book on it as well, which is part of the Humble Bundle. It's a really good book. They also do a really good ball gown book as well, and I think they had one on shoes or leggings. I can't remember, but it was another really, really good read. Kinpatsu Cosplay is my personal favorite pattern maker. I swear by her patterns. Kinpatsu. She is a South African cosplayer who recently moved to Canada. Her Night Peach pattern literally is the pattern that I use for all of my armor. I found out that like she and I are like about the same height, about the same shape and everything, and I was like, all right, these are my patterns for the rest of my life. I never want to make a pattern again. Oh God, I'm trying to think who else there is. There's so many. I have to go through the list. Jessica Negri for YouTube. I really like her stuff. She is one of the longest running cosplayers that has existed. I will let you know, she is very much a boudoir and sexy cosplayer, so if that's not something you're comfortable with, just keep that in mind. But her crafting videos that are like on crack, she is a gremlin. I feel like I learn more from her than I do anyone else because she just drops the most random like, oh yeah, the one I said earlier, she was using twine and wrapping around a PVC pipe and she painted it. And she was like, oh look, wood. And I was looking at it, it was like, oh my God, it looks like wood. I wouldn't have thought of that. So she's really good for like watching and just absorbing all the information, but she doesn't really do any patterns or anything like that. Jessica Negri, Nigri. She's on YouTube. That's where I would definitely watch a lot of her stuff. Her Instagram is a lot more focused on her sexy content. So again, if that's not something you're comfortable with, just keep that in mind. You've got SKS Props, which does a lot of like different tutorials as well as free patterns and whatnot. He is on YouTube and Instagram as well and has his own website. Checking time. I am doing a panel tomorrow all about foam crafting, and God, I love foam crafting. It is at 10 o'clock, and I believe it will be in room 114, and I will be talking a lot more about that kind of stuff. But SKS Props is also someone that has a foam deal where he sells foam through a different like store, and you can buy a bunch of different foam that's like his official foam. It's really, really good. Bearded Cosplay, again for armor, he's really good specifically with foam clay. If you want to watch someone who can sculpt stuff like nobody's business, just watch his stuff. It's really good. He's also pretty good about responding to DMs if you have questions. He doesn't bite. He's very nice. But then again, shameless plug, I do a lot of tutorials on my YouTube and stuff as well, which if y'all are interested, I'm about to give y'all the little QR code. So I am on Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, and YouTube is Yub Yub Commander or Yub Yub Commander Cosplay. There's my QR code. And I am very open to any questions that you might have. It is late in the day and I had work really early this morning, so my brain is like starting to fry to the point that I'm like, did I answer that question already? So apologies for the rambles. But I do YouTube tutorials. Most of them are based on specific costumes that I'm making, but I do some more generalized ones. I cover a lot of sewing and foam crafting. My current build is a massive armor set from World of Warcraft, if any of you guys are familiar with that game. And I will be having a full pattern set that will go available on my Patreon for that, as well as I will be making a full like series of YouTube videos explaining how I've made this costume. But yeah, I think that's about it, because I know they want us out of here a little bit early, but do y'all have any final questions about anything before we all skedaddle? All right. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
I know this was rapid fire and like 5,000 pieces of information, so I appreciate y'all sticking with me on that one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.